When playing chess, I always thought that the pawns got in the way of the pieces. So what if we created a variant where all the pieces are in front of the pawns? I tested this out, and I mean, pretty much after bishop h4 check, there's pretty much nothing black can do to really resolve and equalize this position. The best move really is to probably trade and go down in exchange, but after queen g5 check, it gets really dangerous for black. I mean, after a move like king e6, you can probably easily just take the rook and you're up in exchange. Now black has some counterplay with maybe queen b5 check, but I believe white can easily counter this with something like bishop b3. And even after something like queen e5 check, white can easily block with queen e4. Black could try bishop h5 check, but I think after this you can easily play f3 and you're probably fine here. Black could try sacking the bishop, but I'm not sure if that works after king takes. At this point, white is really up in material. Even though this is a very double-edged position, it's probably not winning for black. Do you see a way for black to equalize? Leave your comments down below. So with this being a little too chaotic, let's try adding some pawns in front of the king and the queen. This is a little bit better, but I still think white has a small advantage after rook takes h7. Because let's say if black counters with rook takes a2, white has the tempo up and can continue capturing. Let's say if black captures on b2, white can capture on f7, and after rook takes c2, the biggest thing here is that white has rook takes e7 check. And with this coming with a check, white wins a pawn, because after queen takes and queen takes, white has that pawn in front of the king. So even though this adds a little bit more protection to the king and the queen, I would say that it's still better for white because you're always playing down a pawn, even in this line. So from here, what we can do is maybe add a rule that says you can't capture a piece for the first 4 moves of play. This makes the game a lot more interesting because you could really just like go here and you can't capture this rook until the first 4 moves. So it focuses on developing your pieces in the first 4 moves and then you can make your capture. This also allows both sides to cover their rooks because you'll notice that without that rule, you could easily just capture the rooks on both of the diagonals here. So they're vulnerable, and the first 4 moves gives you an opportunity to either move the bishops or move the rooks out of the way or defend them so that you can develop your pieces a little bit better. So this is the way I'm playing now, and if you're curious, let's say if I just move my bishop here, how these pawns move is that you can actually go 2 squares from the starting position. So even though the pawns start on c1, b1, a1, you can still move it to, let's say, c3 here. And these pawns still can go either 1 or 2 as well. Alright, so now let's talk about castling. So castling still works in this variation. You can do castle long or short, but in order to do that, you need to move these pawns out of the way. And to do that, you also need to move the bishop and the knight if you want castle short. So for example, you'd move your bishop out, move your knight, move these pawns, either 1 or 2 squares, and then you would castle. Same thing if you wanted to castle long, how that would work is that you'd move out the bishop, you would move out the knight, you would push these 2 pawns, and then you'd also have to move out the queen, and then you can castle long. So you have to get this pawn out of the way so it can come around like that. Very interesting, very different. You have to have an open mind with this. Now, en passant still works kind of the same way. I'll show you how that works in this variation. So let's move everything back to where it was. Let's say if a black pawn makes it all the way here. If you move 2 spaces from the back rank, en passant still works the same way where you can capture accordingly here. But those are the main rules so far in this variant. Let me know your thoughts on this variation down in the comments section below. Now, if you really want to play this, I recommend playing over the board. On chess.com, you can't really set this up unless you go into the setup position area of the analysis. And what's interesting is you can't analyze the game because it's an invalid position. So there's no way to really run this through an engine, which makes it playing it very interesting. If you're interested in this variation, I'm going to make more videos and challenge people to play this over the board, those that are brave enough to try this new variation. So be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested, and I look forward to bringing you more content soon.